Welcome to Thelma FM's Life Story podcast. Life Story can be an in-depth interview going through much of someone's life, or a snippet, or a single aspect, as in this interview with Ena Munro. Ena was brought up in the west of Scotland in the Fort William area. She came to Edinburgh in 1949 at the age of 18 to train as a nurse at Leith Hospital. She talks here of that training, of being a midwife for a year, and then returning to work at Leith Hospital in the early 1950s. She remained there until she retired in the mid-80s. It's a fascinating glimpse into the world of nursing in the early days of the NHS and in the day-to-day running of Leith Hospital. We hope you enjoy.
Longmoor and Liberton were affiliated with Leith. Students used to go there for, is it a year or was it a year and a half? They sat their preliminary exams before they came, so that when they came to Leith, they were into their second year. We who started off at Leith, we had to do the whole thing at Leith, but Longmoor was geriatrics, or, well, not so much geriatrics, they weren't called geriatrics then, there were people who were disabled, so there were people who couldn't cope at home, they were, which they don't do now, they give them aid at home and things like that, whereas then, well, they just didn't have the facilities, I suppose, and they were, Northern General specialised in quite a lot of, they had, I never worked at the Northern, I know eventually they had geriatrics, but they also had, I think, rheumatology, and the Western was always, it was always a general hospital. Well, in Leith we had medical wards, we had surgical wards, we had a gynecological ward, we had eye operations, yes, we used to do eye cases, and we also did orthopaedics, and ear, nose and throat. And we never had any infection. It just is amazing, with all these different things. And they were in mixed wards. It wasn't as if there was special, the gynecological ward was separate. It was a 9-bedded ward, but the eye patients and ear, nose and throat were nursed in the main wards. Children's, it was separate of the casualty department, with casualty. They were outpatients, the clinics and things.
And how long were you at Leith Hospital working?
I did my training and I went to be and did midwifery. Can't say I enjoyed all that much. And when I finished midwifery, I wasn't going to go back to Leith, but I needed a job. And at that time there used to be a recruiting office in Rose Street, I think. And I went there to see what jobs were going. So the only job available was a staff nurse in Leith Hospital. Miss Mitchell wasn't very pleased with me for not having applied to her first of all, instead of going to the recruitment office. And a friend who was a staff nurse in the medical wards, she came from Caithness. We were going to go to Canada, and she got engaged and got married.
So when you say you went away to do midwifery, was that was just to train?
Yes, aye.
Where did you do that?
Elsie Ingles.
Right, of course. Yes, we've forgotten about Elsie Ingles. So what?
It was strange. We lived in, we had to stay in, and there was the different wards. There was antenatal wards, and there was postnatal, and there was the nursery, which was quite something. If you know Elsie Ingles, well, the bit that faces this way, area where there's a veranda sort of, there's upper wards away at the top, and then there was lower wards away down at the bottom, which was sort of in the basement, and the nursery was sort of in between, and it had all the bathrooms next to it for the nursery. And we had an assistant matron who was one of the nastiest people, I think, that I ever... The matron, when I went there, she was away in Canada on some sort of special course or tour or something, and this person was in charge. And I don't think she liked anybody, and I don't think anybody liked her. She slept in the rooms, and her room seemed to face over to where the nursery was. And during the night, if there was babies crying, you had to take them in their cot through to the changing rooms and sit and put them along the top, because it disturbed her sleep. She was a strange person. So I spent a year in Elsie's. I don't think midwifery was my sort of... I liked the babies, and I quite liked delivery. When you also had, if you did your year to get your full certificate, you had to do so long on district, so you got called out during the night and everything. And I remember there was always a trained midwife with you. It didn't mean that it was a trained midwife from Elsie's that went with you. It could be a midwife that was out on the district, and a taxi took you to... And I remember we once went down the side of the playhouse,
Greenside.
There. It was a pretty awful place then, actually. And when we got there, the baby was already born, but seemingly this is what happened. The husband delivered the babies and then he sent for the midwife.
You sound as though he deliberately delivered the baby.
Well, I think he did, actually. I don't know what his idea was, but the midwife says, but he always does this, She was lying on a mattress in the corner, it wasn't in a full bed. It was just a mattress lying on the floor.
So what year would you have gone back to Leith to actually work?
55.
Did you enjoy it again, going back to Leith? Or?
I must have done, I stayed there until I retired.
And what was your job when you got there?
I was a staff nurse in the surgical ward. Well, the sister was in charge of the ward, and although there was more staff nurses, I was probably the junior staff nurse to begin with, and then the senior staff nurse, because if others came along, and then Sister Burgess retired. Well, she didn't retire, she got married, and I got the post. So. And
was it common, did women retire or leave nursing when they got married?
More or less, I think. Or some did. We had married people as staff nurses. Don't think there was any. I think Katie Mortimer, when she married, she left actually. I don't think there was any married sisters. Well, there was always a sense in Leith that Leith belonged to the Leith people, although latterly you had to admit people from all over. But I think at one stage it was probably more or less Leith people that were the patients, Well, I was in a surgical ward,
Right.
You had to prepare people for theatre and dressings and removal stitches and all sorts of things, I had a variety. And you had to train the nurses, and that was a big part of your duties, making sure that they knew what they were doing. And because you had different, well, if you had gynae patients in one ward, and my next door. And operating, there was different surgeons and they operated on different days. And those ward rounds with the consultant who was the big chief.
And was it the case that, you're talking of big chiefs, that matron was very much in control of?
Oh yeah, well the one we had when I started training, she was ex-army.
Really? And did she continue that mentality?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Right. You had to have the beds. You went after breakfast, when you did the bedpan round or whatever, or the bottles for the boys if you were in the male ward. And then you had to go around all the beds, straighten them up, and at that stage they all had white bed covers on. And the wheels of the bed had to face in the one direction, and all the cupboard doors had to be shut. Before we had a big cupboard in the centre of the ward that had the linen in it, and at Leith there was lots of cupboards under it. We had marble windowsills, and there was sliding cupboards with sliding doors underneath this, and all these doors had to be shut before matron did her ward round in the morning.
And woe betide you if they weren't, I suppose.
Oh yes, you'd get into trouble. So I still shut cupboard doors. Old habits that I had. Yes, Oh yes. At night time, in the afternoon, the white covers were taken off the bed, and the top blanket was a red blanket. Now we made beds twice a day, believe it or not. You made the beds in the morning, bathed the patients, made the beds, and in the afternoon you made the beds again. And the white covers were folded and put over the end of the bed. This red blanket was the top cover then, and then the night staff made the beds in the morning, and the white covers were put on. Well, depending on you didn't change sheets every day, but most days you did actually. Really? And I used to have these what they called draw sheets. There was a Macintosh sheet that went across the bed like that, and there was a white sheet, you know, be about as broad as that over it, and there must have been the most uncomfortable things. That's how patients got bed sores, you know, because these things used to wrinkle, you know, and every time you went round the beds and tidied them, you straightened these sheets.
And you said a Macintosh, what?
You know, a piece of Macintosh, like yes,
oh, right.
like
so, yeah,
a rubber sheet,
right.
you know. But of course, in those days, patients didn't get out of bed the way they do now onto a commode. They used a bedpan, so of course you had to have some protection as well from that, you know. Yeah. Steam, it was a boiler house, that it was water that went through the pipes.
So you wouldn't have had open fires at that?
Oh yes, we did.
And would you have had to have done those as well?
Put coal on the fire, and there was a day room and the surgical wards. There was a little room at the top. There was actually 2 beds in it. There was a fireplace there. There was a fireplace in the big ward. It was great during the night when you were on night duty. You stoked up the fire. And there's a mantelpiece. And then ward 3, which I had, which was originally the gynecological ward, and then it was the eye ward eventually. That's right, it was the eye ward after the gynae, because gynae went to the eastern match. And it was the eye ward, and there was a pillar in the middle of the ward, and there was a fireplace at either side, and there was a marble fireplace, mantelpiece on both sides, and you could have had a fire on both sides, you know. We used to coal fire, you know, and fire guard round it. It was strange, you know. I don't know what the idea was, whether it had been 2 separate wards at one time, because then there was an emergency door through to the medical wards that you could domestics who were very thorough and it was their ward, you know, and they looked after it properly. To begin with, when I started my training, when you went onto the ward, the surgical wards had a strip of lino before they got the whole ward covered. This is what it used to be. There was a strip of lino down the centre of the floor with a wooden edging on either side of it. Junior nurse, if you were the junior nurse, you were into the ward, you pulled out all these beds to this, as far as this piece of flooring. You got a bucket with hot soapy water, and you mopped all the pipes. Yes, you mopped all the pipes. You brushed out from underneath the beds into this centre bit. Then the domestic staff came on at 8 o'clock. We went on at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and she brushed down this green, it was green piece of lino. Every week this lino got polished with one of these great big industrial polishers. And this man, Harry was his name, that was his job, buffing up the lino. Elsie was in Leith. So as I say, as a junior nurse, you were responsible for so much cleaning.
And things were overall a lot stricter, weren't they?
Oh, very much so, yes.
So what was the matron would be in charge?
And then there was an assistant matron, and then there was a night superintendent who went round at night time and who listened for everybody to be coming in late. She had a wee office, well, it wasn't a wee office, in a certain area, and she could hear folk coming along because she had to come in the hospital door at night, and she used to listen, and everybody that was late used to try and tiptoe, but no, Susie always heard them, and she'd come out and ask where they'd been and what they were doing, you know, and all sorts of things. And she wrote down all the excuses that was
Did she?
Yes, I believe so.
Book,
she had a book, I believe, that had all the excuses in it.
I bet there were some good ones.
I bet there was. I never ever saw it. But and we had the place that they had to cross was a red tiled corridor. So of course there was no carpeting, you know, so that they could hear footsteps.
Yeah. So who was the matron when you first went back to Leith?
It was still Miss Mitchell.
And was she quite? She was
very nice, really, you know. But she was ex-army, which was, and she wore one of these big veils, you know.
Oh, right. What colour was your uniform?
It was grey
Right.
with a white apron. But to begin with, we didn't have aprons to begin with, and then we got black and white striped with an apron. I think probably during the war, cutting down laundry bills and things, that the sisters wore quite a deep blue, not navy blue, but a deep sort of blue. The matron and the assistant matron, they wore navy blue uniform dresses. I think they were probably made for them, The cereal or porridge, usually porridge. I cooked breakfast every day, and the relevances, what I like to call it, they had 3-course lunch, and in the afternoons they were allowed to bring in eggs, yes, and the nursing staff boiled these eggs, and they could have an egg with their afternoon tea, and then they had a cooked supper at night, and before they went to sleep they had either Horlicks or Ovaltine or whatever they wanted. The night staff did that. That was the first thing they did when they went on the ward for night duty. Went round with the trolley with hot milk and hot water, and this egg business went on for years and years. They could bring in eggs and you had to boil them in the afternoon.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, we have others. Just pop along to our website, www.livingmemory.org.uk, and follow the link on our homepage. You can also learn more about our work or trawl through our photo archive. We have over 3,500 photos for you to look at. Check us out on Facebook under Living Memory Association, or for podcasts, Thelma FM. We also have a Twitter account. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy our other content.